What's up, guys? Welcome back to Project Time Garage. You know, I've made a lot of videos, and once or twice I've had this truck just kind of either in the background or I mentioned something about it, and I got a lot of people asking me to do a video on this truck, asking more information about it and all that. So I thought, well, you know, it's starting to kind of get pretty out, and maybe it's time to spend a little time on this truck and give it some love. Let me give you a backstory on it, just a kind of a quick introduction, bring you guys up to speed with where we are and everything that's transpired with this thing, because I started working on this truck way before I ever had a YouTube channel, and I really wish I had a channel when I started doing this, because this thing has came from absolute nothing, lowest of the low, into not quite as low. So this is my 1974 Ford F100. Yes, F100, not F150. The F100 still existed in 74. This thing came from the factory with a Ford FE360. That's the Ford Edsel engine, the one with the weird intake manifold that kind of goes up underneath the valve covers. It obviously four-wheel drive, manual transmission, long bed, and no frills. So pretty much a really basic truck. Now, the reason this thing came to be, or the reason this thing came home with me, is because I was looking for some kind of a truck that I didn't care to get scratched up and messed up, and, you know, a truck that I could bring up to places like this. And not worry about it. So I set out to find, my only real criteria for buying a truck was four-wheel drive and 1974 or earlier. And the reason I wanted 74 or earlier is because in this area we have, or at least we had, emissions. So I didn't want to try to ramrod something like this through an emissions test, because I'm not going to get into all that. So this thing started out as an extremely rough vehicle. I bought it over by Chattanooga, up on kind of a mountaintop, where the guy used it to haul wood. So this guy cut wood for a living, and he would drive this thing up and down the sides of the mountains and the hills and stuff and throw it full of wood and bring it back down. To say it was rough is an understatement. There was literally not one single panel on the entire truck that was anywhere remotely near usable. In fact, the sides of the bed where the stake pockets are were bent like this. It looked like somebody just took them and squeezed them up to a peaks. It was beat to pieces, but it was cheap. It was like, I think I paid like $700 or $800 for it. It was exactly what I wanted. A freshly rebuilt 360 FE motor, manual transmission, and four-wheel drive. It checked all the boxes, and it made, you know, the 74 year, obviously. So I bought it, and I get it home and I start to realize that things aren't as rosy as they seem. Whoever rebuilt it didn't do a very good job of it at all. As a matter of fact, there wasn't even any crankcase ventilation at all. Everything was plugged up, and if you got a lot of RPMs up, it would literally blow the dipstick tube out. So I had a lot of stuff to fix on it, a lot of stuff to work out, and I did. I got them all worked out to the point where the truck ran and drove pretty good. But I had this hot oil pressure problem, and, you know, I'm thinking, what should I do? Should I leave it alone, or should I just send it, or should I fix it? So it was during this time that I kind of got tired of riding around and it looking like an absolute hoopty, because, you know, remember, it was rough. It was very rough. So I thought, well, maybe what I should do is maybe I should find just a few little pieces to kind of spruce it up, right? Maybe I should just make it a decent woods truck. So I did a couple of little things to it to kind of help spiff it a little bit. Big thing was finding a bed, because the tailgate didn't work on it. It was bent like this. It was a disaster. So I found a bed for it and came up with a parts truck for it. And The parts truck was in better shape than that truck, at least the cab was. So it was on. This thing went down to absolute nothing. I literally started with a rolling chassis, and I took the cab from one truck, the front clip from another truck, the hood from one of the other trucks, and a bed from a junkyard, and away we went. So this thing had the cab sitting in the floor on dollies, everything stripped out of it, cleaned it all out, put sound deadener in there, painted it all up, got everything worked out as far as wiring and all the gremlins that had happened over all the years with the truck. And ended up getting it in pretty good shape, right? It was about that time that my hot oil pressure issue really raised its head. It was to the point where, you know, sitting there and idling, I was barely holding 2-3 pounds of pressure. I was starting to hear a little top end noise. I'm like, you know what, forget it. So I went on the hunt to try to find an actual 390, because believe it or not, every truck that you find that has a FE motor, whether it's a 352 or a 360 or a 390 or whatever, everybody says, oh, it's a 390, because you can't tell, because they're all stamped 352 on the back of the block, right? So the only way you can really tell is bore and stroke. So did a lot of searching, a lot of looking, finally found a good, well-known 390. Plopped that thing in there, and that was really the end of the mechanical problems for the truck. I had a buddy that that I deal with a lot that got a good deal for me on the wheels and tires. The tires are 35 by 1250 buckshot Maxxis mutters, and they're on 15 by 10 Bart's steel wheels. I called in a favor on the lift. The lift is I think it's about a 6-inch total rough country. Just plain old rough country shocks, nothing special there. The bed liner, another buddy kind of called in a favor on that. Got the spray-in bed liner done just basically for nothing. As far as the paint goes, this paint is, believe it or not, Rust-Oleum. I literally thinned down Rust-Oleum from a quart jar, mixed it with mineral spirits, shot it with a HVLP gun, wet sanded it, polished it, and buffed it, and it looks good. And there's a reason I did that. Number one, I was putting this together cheap on a budget, just so I didn't feel so bad when I did get it scratched up. You know, I did get it scratched up. I'll show you that in a minute. I didn't want to feel bad when I scratched it, and at the same time, I wanted something that I could just run to any hardware store, buy a can of gray Rust-Oleum, and have it match perfect. And that actually has saved my life. I can't tell you how many dents and scratches and stuff I've fixed on this thing just by setting them out, throwing a rattle can on them, and then just kind of buffing them back in. You can't even tell it happened. It's awesome. And I think I've got maybe 200 bucks in the entire paint job. That includes the sandpaper because, you know, not a show truck. So that's that. Let me walk you around it a little bit, just kind of show you the goods, the bads, the uglies, and kind of where it stands now. So let's go walk. So this thing is called, they call this series of trucks from like 73 to 79. They called them a Dentside. And the reason for that is, if you look down the side, you'll see that the body has an indentation, right? And before that, the generation before that had a protrusion here as opposed to a dent. They called those bump sides. Have no idea what they called them before that. But anyway, this one is a Dentside. I went through and polished to the best of my ability all this trim here. Found a couple of mirrors in the junkyard. Obviously, you'll see dents and dings all down the side of it because, well, you know, it is what it is. This is that super thick bed liner that I had sprayed on it. Really good stuff. It's Rhino liner. And you'll see here, I didn't even bother with fixing the rust because it's not that kind of truck. The grill is in pretty decent shape. It's definitely not perfect, but it's getting hard to find them. And this one has a little broke spot right there. That'd be a junkyard front bumper. And then, of course, a couple of dents on here that I've done, unfortunately. But the big thing is, I mentioned that this thing is a Dentside, right? Well, check out the dent in the side. I did that. And believe it or not, I actually felt really bad about doing that. I didn't mean to. One of those deals where it's snowing outside and I'm on a hillside trying to collect my deer blind, and things kind of went wrong, and the truck really was a very slow slide, and I was just trying to get off the hill and ended up getting up against a tree. So that's going to be one of the things that we're going to fix on this truck in a video. We're going to try to push that dent out some. And I'm not sure what it's going to take to push it out because this is pretty serious steel. This isn't, you know, this isn't what I'm used to working with. But I thought maybe what I would do is get like a basketball or something and shove up under there between the bed and this and air it up and see if I can start pushing some of that out. I don't know. Have to find another piece of trim to go down the side that matches this. I have all the rest of the trim for the truck, extra. In fact, I have a lot of extra parts. But the bed sides are two pieces of trim that I do not have extras of. So I've got to find some of those. And I've scoured some junkyards, and it ain't easy. You'll notice a single exhaust pipe. That's because it has a factory exhaust on it. It is super quiet, and that's the way I want it. Again, back here, ugly, beat up, rusty. Nothing special on the rear bumper. But I do have all of the tailgate trim, all that cool stuff. That stuff is getting major expensive. In fact, I have 3 total sets of that sitting in my storage unit. So hopefully, if anything ever happens, I'll have plenty of that to go back and fix, right? Let's have a look at the inside. We'll just start from the top. I redid this headliner, basically painted all the trim up, went to Joann Fabric and got some of this fabric to put on here. The glue is starting to come down a little bit, but it still looks okay. I built this shelf, this overhead shelf, and covered it in the same material just to have a place to put some stuff. And of course, there's like a CB up there and such. I don't think that's going to stay, but anyway, as far as the seats go, these are out of I don't know, I think a 2004 or 5 F-150. The reason I got them is because they have the integrated seat belts in them, and this truck didn't have any seat belts in it when I got it. But I honestly think I'm going to get rid of these and go back to a regular bench seat setup, just simply because these seats can't recline enough, and they're so thick that they make you kind of sit forward a little bit, and it's not comfortable to use the brake and clutch very much because my legs are kind of scrunched up. Obviously, while I had it apart, I painted the dashboard, got it all nice and cleaned up and spiffed up. Somebody had already cut out for the radio with what appears to be a beaver, so I just went ahead and slammed the radio in there. Painted everything, got it all cleaned up, re-dyed the door panels, and I even built little kick panels down there, or like, you know, covers for the kick panels, kind of like we did in the Datsun. This thing has a strange transfer case. It's a Spicer transfer case. I can't remember the model number, but if you notice, it just says 2-wheel, 4-wheel. That's it. No low range. You're pretty much either in 2-wheel drive or you're in 4-wheel drive. That's it. So that's interesting. I believe they called that an in and out, or that was kind of like the maybe a layman term for it, in and out transfer case. Some of the mud racers, I think, maybe used that some. I don't know. I just spread some stuff. But anyway, I did manage to find at LMC Truck just the floor mat for it. I did not get the full mat, and that's got to happen. You'll see this is some of the sound deadening that I laid down under, just jute back in with the foil on it that I need to finish, you know, doing the whole truck in this. You'll see this stuff right here. This is, if you pull it up, it's like a tar. Well, that's peel and seal. You can buy that at Lowe's, and it's a great sound deadener, man. It is great. But I have peel and seal literally from up here on the back all the way down, all the way up to the firewall. And for a 1974 truck going down the road with the windows rolled up, this thing is quiet. It's way quieter than it has any right to be. It also helps that I went through and replaced all of the door seals, all the weather stripping. All of the window felts are new all the way around. The vent window or wing window seals are all new all the way around. So the truck's really quiet on the inside. Let's check out under the hood. Now this is your average, everyday, ordinary handle from a pair of pliers. We can pull that and then hit that, opens right up. So there we go. That is I believe it's 68 date code Ford 390 FE motor. Nothing real special under here, except everything is pretty well clean. Sitting right under there, you'll see an Edelbrock 1406 carburetor. Not racing anything, just want it to start, run, and drive well. And it does. It really does. I try to keep everything fairly stock appearing under here. There is a Carter pump with a Mr. Gasket fuel regulator, trying to keep that 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. The truck's set up for dual batteries. I have one battery in it now, but what I've done is I've added a second relay here, and you'll see that this relay jumps to this relay, and when you turn the key on, this relay closes and makes this hot, going all the way around to the other side. Now, again, I don't have that second battery in it. It's just laying back here and capped off. Instead, I have an old military tin in here, and this has pretty much my basic side of the road kit. It's pretty much like you saw on the Datsun. This just contains some basic tools and stuff that, you know, I'm probably going to need if I break down on the side of the road. And I've needed it a couple of times, especially when I was working the bugs out of this thing. It was fun. So anyway, that's it under the hood. So it's got some age on it. You know, the restoration, I guess if you want to call it that, has some age on it. It's been about it's probably been almost 10 years since I've done this, and the truck is starting to get in a little bit of disrepair, because since I've gotten freedom, this thing is just kind of set in my tractor shed and hasn't moved a lot. And I'm going to fix that, because the truck drives and rides just too well, and I have way too many man hours invested in this thing. I need to get it back on the road. There's a couple things that we need to do on it, and this is going to be our upcoming videos. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the drive shaft out of it. The rear shaft is bent. It's bent because I may have been a little overzealous coming back and forth through the woods, and I may or may not have kind of momentarily left the ground, and I may or may not have came back down and hit a rock with the drive shaft. And Budget Fix Garage may or may not have been with me when I did it. Just saying. So anyway, and that was a long time ago. So this thing's been sitting probably 3 or 4 years like that. It works good out on the property here, but once you get out on the road, it's she's rough. So we're going to do that. We're going to fix that that big boo-boo on the side that I've done and try to make that look a little bit better and just kind of bring it back up to driving status. I also have all of the air conditioning components that would have been factory to this truck. So I'd like to get that back out and get the air conditioning all set back up and put on it and working. Maybe swap that seat out for a bench, or maybe a different set of seats with integrated seat belts. I don't know. Something to make it a little more comfortable just to ride in. And I think I'd like to drive the truck some, and ultimately it's probably going to end up getting sold. So I'm going to have a little bit more fun with it. I'm going to do a few videos with it and stuff like that, but probably it's going to find a new home if I had to guess. So I think probably the next thing to do, let's go take a ride in it, because obviously we're back here, which is pretty much the top of my property. And it's kind of a long way back to the house, about, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile or so. And it's a little bit rough and a little bit fun. So let me put you in the truck and we'll go take a ride. So come on. Sit down. Sit down. Good girl. Stay right there. Good girl. Okay, so that should give you guys a good idea of where the truck was, what's happened to it up to this point, and now we can continue on working on it. Now, that being said, I would really love to hear if you guys have any idea or opinion on what else I should do to this truck. I'd like to hear it down in the comments. I mean, I've had some of the best comments and the best ideas for my projects ever just off YouTube. So feel free to give me a comment down there. Tell me what you think we should do, what you'd like to see done to it, and we might try and make that happen. So without running this video all day long, I appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends about us. And guys, I'll see you next time.